Joe Gonzales. How are you, sir?
I'm okay, trying to survive this COVID thing that's going on with us in this United States and the whole world. But
It stinks. I hate it. It's so
yeah,
annoying. But all right, we're gonna start here. Summer of 1979, you head to Japan to work out with your hero Takada. How did that trip happen? How did you get to Japan?
it first started off. They brought an all-star college team to California, and I got called to wrestle. His name was Fujisawa. He was a silver medalist. Um, to wrestle against him at UC Davis. And so I went up there and wrestled, and I beat him. And so the Japanese coach came up to me, and we just started talking, and wanted to know who I was, my name and who I was, and blah blah blah. And he said, "You should come to Japan and train." I said, "Are you kidding me?" And he goes, "Yeah." And so I took him up on it. So that summer of I want to say '79, yes, I I sold. I was living in an apartment with all my other teammates, and I just, sold my stereo system, all kinds of stuff. Living as a college student, you don't have a lot of valuable stuff, and so I got rid of it, and um, I had some donations, and I, paid my way to Japan. I just paid for the flight, and the coach took care of me. He introduced me to Takada, Tomiyama. I got to stay with, besides this college coaches at his college, I got to stay at three other different colleges and work out with these world's best. So that's how I got to train with these guys and kind of learn their technique. You could say I was kind of a spy in the sense, the way I look at it, because when I came back, all the stuff I learned, I taught it to Tim Vanny and John Azvedo and Jesse Reyes and all my teammates. This is what they taught me. So it was quite an experience. I don't think not too many people are able to do that in their life. And that's in anything, it doesn't have to be wrestling. Go over there and learn from them and learn their culture and, the way of life. So it was a good experience for me.
How long were you over there for?
Um, I want to say almost 3 months.
Months?
Yeah, close to that, because I remember 79, the 79 school year in college, soon it was over, I was gone. I took off. And I want to say that was probably in May, you know. So let's see, May, June, July, and I think the 79-80 season started, like, college usually starts kind of in August, the middle of August, at least for us. So I want to say I was there, that long. And I've been there actually let's see, before that, I want to say I was there. I went in high school on a culture exchange trip, and I spent a month there. Okay. It was kind of like the California All-Stars, and we all went over there. And then, then I went to Japan, the time to train with these guys. And then they had a tournament one time. I forgot what the tournament was called, so I went there at that time. And then I went back to Japan actually again. I want to say during 1988. I went there for only a month and trained again. And I want to say the last time I was there is when I was done with my wrestling career. My wife and I, were traveling, and, one place I chose, let's go to Japan. And that was the last time I was there. And that was like, I don't know, 2005 or 6, I want to say. So I've been there quite a few times. I plan to go back if I can. I like the food. I like the culture. The people are small like me, so all the clothes fit me perfectly. I don't have to get them tailored, you know. So
Now, we all want to know, take us inside the Japanese school of wrestling. How is their practice in their whole school of wrestling different than the U.S.?
Well, I want to say, if anyone knows about Japanese culture, everything has to start with respect. So the older you are, it doesn't even have to be in wrestling, just, in general in their culture, the older you are, the more respect you have. I mean, you could be 80 years old and basically have dementia, but you still have that respect. And I learned that right off the bat when I got there. But I already kind of knew that to begin with, because where I grew up in, it's kind of sort of as a multi-pot. Where I grew up in LA, and it was just a mixture of all kinds of different cultures, and Japanese culture happened to be there. So having friends that were Japanese, I kind of knew what to expect. And so and you know what, the coach over there, they could physically hit you. I mean, they walk around with these bamboo sticks, or kendo sticks I would call them. And if you got taken down, they'd come up to you and just whack you on the head and kick you in the face. It was pretty brutal, actually. I don't know if it still goes on, okay? But back then, yes, it was. That's the difference. They could come up and slap you. I seen it with some of the wrestlers that they had, that they got taken down, or they felt like they weren't giving their 110% in practice. The coach would come up to them and just slap them around, and I'd imagine he got cursed out in Japanese. I mean, his voice went really high, and I was like, oh, so so that's I want to say that's only really difference. We train just as hard as they do. Twice a day they train. I want to say it's a little more organized, whereas, at least at Cal State, we kind of, we did our warm-ups, we kind of did our drilling on our own and just started wrestling hard. With them, it was a little different. We did a like almost 45 minutes to an hour of warm-ups. I mean, you already gone through two T-shirts of sweat. Okay, and now you're putting your third one, and now you're going to go practice matches. And they would go practice matches, a lot of practice matches. And what I mean by that, they would actually go the time of a real match. And they go like maybe 5 or 6, practice matches. Where I want to say, like in the Cal State room and some of the training camps I've been in the U.S., we just kind of grab a guy, and, okay, you got like 10-minute goes or grind matches or whatever you want to call them. And you just kind of went takedowns. Well, over there was just like a straight on match. You took them down, you try to turn them, you couldn't turn them in like 15, 20 seconds, you go back on your feet. So, so that's, that was kind of the difference I noticed when I was over there, and I had the best of both worlds, besides learning sort of the technique from like, some of the best in Japan. I learned a lot of technique from the United States too, with a lot of my teammates, and, being on a couple of world teams and learning from those guys, especially like Dave Schultz. He was, he's a California boy, and I known him since high school, and, I drilled with that guy, and I hated drilling with that guy, because every time I say I did a double leg, it was like running into a bunch of bolts, just my whole shoulder, my head would just be killing me. This guy, he had such good position. It was great.
And that's when you were wrestling Schultz?
No, I'd be drilling with him.
Gotcha. That's what I thought.
Yeah, he was always a weight class above me. We were on the California, California state team. And we used to go to back then it was the United States Wrestling Federation that had the high school nationals this is back in the, the 70s, at that old field house at the University of Iowa. And so I would drill with him all the time, or he'll ask me, and drilling with him was just, he would ask me like, how did you do this? And I would ask him, how do you do this? So, it was a great experience, and I felt honored to learn from this guy, Dave.
And I wanted to ask you, on that topic, you've said before that it's really a science of wrestling versus strength and a grind type thing. You thought it was way more of a science. What do you mean by that?
Well, I learned it from my old we could call it my early days in when I started wrestling. The coaches I had, they kind of open when I got into wrestling. I had a coach that he never wrestled before. He was basically the head football coach, but he coached wrestling, which a lot of coaches do, and he kind of taught from a book, and I heard through another teammate today, the junior college in down the street has an open wrestling room. So I started showing up there in the evenings, and it was just kind of open wrestling room. Everyone showed up from the neighborhood and just grabbed a partner and just started wrestling. And there was 3 coaches in there, and I would pick their brain. And they're ones that open up the scientific approach, it's just amazing. Like, and if, you wrestled before, and it's like when you do a perfect setup and you hit that takedown and you hit it so perfectly that your opponent just goes, boom, falls right to the mat, and you score your points. It was like effortless. You're like, no muscle, you didn't use hardly any muscle except for the setup. That's what I mean. It's like down to a science. It just, you set him up, he goes for the setup, and you hit your shot or whatever. And it's just, they go down. What can I say? So to me, that was like the science of it. And then the other approach was the science of losing weight and cutting weight and the way we trained. I think even now it's more down to a science now that I noticed than when I was wrestling. Because Dan Gable was the man back then, and we cut a lot of weight. We kind of just powered through if our buddy, there was no such thing as overtraining. You just powered through it, mental toughness. And now that I see a lot of the coaches, these guys that are like Zeke Jones and all these guys that are more, how do you say it, more to the science, I guess. They know when to back off and put the pressure on their wrestlers and stuff like that. So that's kind of down to a science now that I've noticed. But I kind of been out of the sport for a long time, and it's just what I kind of read, what I see, talking to teammates and friends that are still involved in the sport. So.
Well, speaking
and
of,
I think that's with every sport now that I've noticed.
Well, yeah, I think of like programs like Cornell where they've done away with the 6 a.m. run. They want their guys to get sleep. So they're really taking a science-based approach to it. But you just mentioned weight cutting, and I have to ask, I read at one point in high school, you did like a 4-day stint of not eating, and the day after the weigh-in, you were up to 148. Tell us that story.
Oh, jeez. That was a nightmare for me. Again,
What were you starting at? What were you cutting to?
I was wrestling 115. I was cutting to 105. Okay. And I was already cutting, I don't know. I didn't have a lot of body fat. I was a senior, a junior in high school. I think my average weight was about 130, and I cut down to 115.
Wow. And
then the coach says, hey, if you want to make it to state, you got to go down to 105. Okay. Whatever the coach said, was you listened to your coach back then, you didn't question him. That's old school respect right there. Okay. And so I cut down 105. I was basically starving myself. I looked like death on a cracker, and I made the weight. And after that, I just went crazy. I mean, I just blew a gasket. I was just eating like constantly, like 24 hours. I went to bed with a big salad bowl. I had ice cream. I had cornflakes. I had chocolate syrup on my belly, and I'm just like feeding myself. And the next morning I woke up and my eyes were all swollen and like almost swollen shut. I mean, I felt all, pudgy and everything. And And so I looked in the mirror and I go, holy crap, what did I do to myself? And so I went on the scale, and I from 105, I went to 148 within 24 hours.
Oh, my Lord. Yeah. And to be, you were already cutting 15 to get to 114 anyway. Like you said, you were weighing 130. So that's a drastic cut. And, in high school, I was surprised to see that you had never won a state title. And in fact, your senior year, you suffered a concussion and wasn't able to even wrestle at the state tournament. Is that right?
Yes, it was, I won, like we have our sections. So, and then we have our leagues. So everything starts off with leagues, your league champion. And then from there you go to the sections. And then from there you go to the state tournament, kind of like that. And so I won my league, and during just practice, I was working out with a guy who was just a little bigger than me. And this is what they tell me, because to this day I don't remember. I had a full-blown head concussion, and I had amnesia. So to this day I don't remember anything, or at least on that day what happened. They said I shot in, and the guy put a whizzer and just whizzered me really down hard, and my head went right into the mat, but I kept wrestling. And for at least a couple more minutes after that, and after that we kind of took a break, and I went outside and got some water. And this is what my teammates had told me what I was doing. I came back in and I started asking, like, hey, what day is this? And my coach said, okay, this is, this day. And like 2 minutes later, what day is this? And he said, Joe, this is, I don't know, the date. Okay. 5 minutes later, same thing. What day is this, coach? He says, oh, something's wrong with you. So they took him to the emergency. They did a, I guess a CAT scan or whatever they do back then. And they said, yeah, you have a full-blown head concussion. I was throwing up. My parents had to make sure I didn't check on me when I fell asleep. And so, and the doctor says, hey, you're, and this is before our section tournament. And, doc says, you're done. Your wrestling career is over. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. I'm going to power through it. I'm going to go. So the next day I wake up and I start running. Oh, what a big mistake. I started throwing up again. I thought my eyeballs were going to pop out of my head. So if anyone's ever had a concussion, they know what I'm talking about. So I knew my season was over. The doctor was right. That year, John Azvedo won the state title at the same weight class I was at. I don't know if I would have ever wrestled them or met in the finals. Who's to say? It has always remained to be seen. And then later on in life, we land up being teammates and workout partners. We would always tease each other, like, oh, John, I would have beaten you. Oh, no, Joe, I would have beaten you, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I never made it to the state tournament, and I was really bummed out. I was just like, oh, I hate wrestling. It's not worth it. Every time I start getting a little better, boom, something happens to me. I have this bad luck. But for some reason, my coach talked me in and says, hey, Joe, you're never a state champion, but maybe you can be a high school national champion. And it was my senior year. Okay, the wrestling season's over. Your senior year, you want to go to the prom. You want to go to grad night. You want to do all the stuff the seniors do. And I thought, you know what? I'll take this chance again. I'll make the sacrifice. I'm not going to go any of that stuff. I'm going to go to these freestyle tournaments, and I'm going to train my butt off. If I wasn't a state champion, maybe I could be a high school national champion. So anyway, so I go to the state qualifying tournament. I make the team. And that's the same team that me and Dave Schultz were on. Okay. So we go back to Iowa City. Make a long story short, I win the tournament. I get outstanding wrestler. I pretty much, beat it. I think the closest match I had was in the finals. I want to say the score was like 8-2 or 7-2 against a wrestler from New York named Mark Acravalli. And I think he landed up wrestling at Syracuse. So, I was never a California state champion. I was maybe something better. I was a high school national champion, I just tell people I was a late bloomer. I didn't do anything in high school and college. It seemed like I started coming on, and I think it's because I was greedy. I was still hungry to do something in wrestling. I made it my lifestyle. That's all I dreamt about was just, being an Olympic champion, a national champion, a state champion, world champion. I put my life on hold for almost 20 years to try to achieve that goal. So, you could say I played catch up on a lot of these other wrestlers that when I got in college, I only had wrestled 4 years in high school, where some of these other wrestlers that were in college had already been wrestling since they were in, middle school. And I didn't start wrestling until I was a freshman in high school. So,
where did that drive come from for you then?
I don't know how to explain it. I mean, my parents always taught me from an early age a very hard work ethic. In order to achieve something, you got to work hard at it. And my dad, he had me working on weekends with him. He had side jobs, and I was like in elementary and junior high, and Saturday morning you want to sleep in, you want to watch cartoons, kind of hang out in bed. No, my dad had me up at 5:30 in the morning doing these jobs with him. And he used to tell me, he goes, "Hey son, he goes, I want you to go to college and get an education so you don't have to work your butt off like I am. He goes, I want you to learn what hard work is, and I don't want you to be afraid of it." Okay, so as far as that hard work ethic, I already had it instilled with my parents. Now, as far as the desire to just I don't know how to explain it. I just, I figured, you know what? I didn't want to be the average Joe Blow in society. They go through life, they get married, they have kids, and you have family functions, and that's what I'm doing now. I wanted to do something in life, just be something a little out of the ordinary, maybe, just, maybe be an Olympic champion or world champion. I just, that's all I lived for at that time,
I'm with you though. The notion of and the people who are listening who have a 9-to-5, nothing wrong with that, but that kind of middle of the road, you're not pushing yourself too far. That just seems like a slow death to me, and so it seemed like you sense that as well at a young age.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I mean, I thank my parents for instilling that in me. And I still use it, aside what I learned from wrestling. I have different challenges now, but it's still the same. I look at it as still the same.
Yeah. Now, you got to wrestle for one of the most, I just call him fascinating, because Joe Seay is just, every time I research him, read about him, talk to former wrestlers, he just seems like a fascinating guy in the sense that he really allowed assistants to have a lot of influence, and practices were, Kendall Cross calls Joe Seay practices like a workshop where you would come in and it was more about individual attention, and one group might be doing something different than the other group. When you think about Joe Seay and his structure and his philosophy, how would you describe it?
Oh, it was very, and I think it was very loose in the sense that, well, I'm just saying, I don't know how he was coaching at Oklahoma State, but at Cal State, and you know what, it was a D2 school back then, a very small school. I mean, when I was there, I think the school population was like 1,200, 1,200 student population. And I would say half of those were athletes, of different sports. And he always seemed to get sort of the scrubs of wrestling, like guys that, well, like for me, I wasn't a state champ, or he got guys that from high school that were like 5th or 6th in the state tournament, but they were still hungry for more. They still had something to accomplish. And I don't know how to describe it, but we were just self-motivated. He just we just grab a guy and start just beating on each other. We didn't do very much to get warmed up, we did a lot of drilling, a ton of drilling. And I think that didn't come from Joe Seay. That came from me and John Azvedo, and then Tim Vanny came into the system, and, Jesse Reyes and, the Questis brothers. We just kind of fed off each other, and we would wrestle like, you hear it from all the other big programs, like, an hour straight, just get in there and just start fighting with each other. And you know what, Joe would just come in and just like, okay, I want you today, and just grab one of us, take us in the corner and beat the crap out of us while the rest of us were, wrestling with our teammates, as practice. He had like I said, he had a very loose practice, but he had a way to get us motivated. He made us believe that, we could be a world champion, the way he talked to us. And he talked at our level, because there's coaches that talk down at you, or, you have to approach them for advice. No, he would come up to you and say, hey, that was great, Joe. Hey, why don't you teach me that? Because he didn't know everything, So he would say, Joe, show me how you did that, And then he says, I want you to show it to the team. So that's the type of coach he was.
But a motivator, though, huh?
Yes, he was. He knew. I hate to say it, but he could talk the panties off a nun. That's the type of guy he was. Now,
were you guys just dominating Division II at this time, and then you'd go to Division Ones? Because you guys.
Yes. And that's another thing about Joe. Fortunately back then, and I wish it still was, that D3 and D2 can go to D1, especially that we're dropping all these programs, and it's just watering down the field. And now the D2 and D3 can't go to D1. Come on, I want to see who's the best. And thank God back then I was able to go. Otherwise, I would have never been an NCAA D1 champion. And so, but he went after everybody. The only time we met in a D2 school was maybe a California tournament during the season, or the D2 nationals. Everything else, the duels or some of the big tournaments, were all D1 schools. He would go out. He'd schedule anybody at any time, anywhere. That's the way he was. He went after the best. And so I never considered myself a D2 wrestler back then. None of us did. We all concentrated on who's the best in D1, So he never made us like, like D2 was like degrading, or, you shouldn't be winning a D1 level wrestler because, you're a D2 wrestler. I get a kick out of people say that, oh, well, he's a D2 wrestler. Some of these guys are good.
Yeah.
And I don't get it,
So are you a two-time D2 champ?
Yes.
Gotcha. And for the people who don't know, you wrestled at Cal State Bakersfield in 1979 and 1980. And in 1980, Cal State Bakersfield as a D2 team had 2 national champs, and you guys were really, really competitive, top 10, top 15 team. And I think it just speaks to how tough California is. You got that JUCO system where it's the California JUCOs are doing their own thing. They're battling it out. There's a lot of talent in California, as you know.
Yes, but you bring up another issue which has been bothering me. They at the college level in California, it's a dying sport.
Yep.
Okay. As you know, they just dropped Fresno State. They dropped the program Fresno State. The coach from Cal State Bakersfield resigned. Okay, so now they have an interim coach, and I see this as an opportunity for like the administration at Cal State. So you know what? Let's drop the program.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how Cal Poly is going right now. I know Stanford's at the chopping block right now. And so at the college level, I see it being dropped. It's a dying sport in California or even the West Coast.
Yeah.
University of Oregon dropped their program, Washington State, the University of Washington, Cal State Fullerton. All these schools had programs, and now they're being dropped. At the high school level, it's thriving.
Huge.
At the junior college level, I want to say there's probably 20 junior colleges in California. I wrestled junior college before I went to at a 4-year college level. And back then, I would say there was close to 50. I could be wrong, but like 50 junior colleges in California. And those guys can compete at the national JUCO. We never went to the national JUCOs because we were so competitive in California because we had so many junior colleges, So,
yeah, a lot of people don't know that the California JUCOs have their own season, and it runs in the fall, and then state championships in December. And
right.
Just California JUCOs, which I think it's cool and unique. But I'm with you. Let's let them wrestle at the NJCs. Let's go.
Right. So,
so why did you, before you got to Cal State Bakersfield, you went to East LA College. You were a state champ there at the JUCO level. Why did you leave Oklahoma?
I like Coach Abel. It was just conflict of styles, in the sense that, Oklahoma, I'm not saying everybody, but they kind of have their own style, like take them down and kind of ride. You don't let someone go, take them down and let them go. That's that's a sin. At least back then. This is back in the 70s. And he was always, giving me a hard time because I take him down and let him go, and then I got to a point where like, man, I can't, I started losing because he was on me so much, about it. And I just felt like I wasn't getting better. I was getting kind of worse. And so, I decided, I'm just going to transfer to, I don't want to, I just feel like I can't accomplish my wrestling goals there. So, I transferred to Cal State, after that. And that gave me 2 more years of eligibility,
So Joe, were you the first takedown let him up guy? Because I grew up in Illinois where it's a takedown state. If you go to the Illinois State Tournament, it's takedown cut. But were you the first guy to do that?
It's funny you mentioned that because, okay, I learned this style. And the reason why I learned it, because my high school coaches, okay, they were more into freestyle than collegiate style, okay? So they said, oh, okay, if you want to be a world champion, Olympic champion, they wrestle freestyle. And a lot of the style is more, on your feet, unless you can turn them or gut wrench them or pin them. So to practice freestyle, let's just work on takedowns. Take them down, let them go. Take them down, let them go. So I started doing that, back in 73, 74, 75. Take them down, let them go. Take them down, let them go. So, and then if you could take a guy down to his back, that's just bonus points. That's even better, And if you can pin him, you pin him. So when I got to Cal State, that was my style. Take him down, let him go. Take him down, let him go. Just build up a big lead. Take them down, let them go. And then before you know it, they started coming up with this new rule. What is it? After 15 or 12, they stop the match or it's a tech, people say, Joe, you're the one that started the take them down, let them go type of wrestling style, and I've been doing that since I was in high school. And then I got into college and started doing it. And I did it at East Los Angeles Junior College when I was at East LA Wrestling. And I tried to do it at Oklahoma, but, Abel, what are you doing? Get him, keep him down,
Well, for people who don't know, your senior year of college, 1980, you set the NCAA record both for wins, you were 55-0, but also for takedowns, 528. And that just shows how prolific you were on your feet back then. So I want to ask you about a couple tournaments now. So when you won Tbilisi, you were the 7th American to win that tournament. Talk us through that tournament just in your mind and what kind of mental pictures you still have from that event.
Oh boy, I tell everyone says what's your most memorable experience of wrestling, and that's got to be in the top two. The year before that, I took a fourth or a fifth. I want to say I took a fifth in the World Championships in Yugoslavia, and then winter came around, and you know, I was still the number one guy in my weight class. So they asked me, hey, do you want to go to a tournament in France, or you want to go to Tbilisi? And I already wrestled a tournament in France, so I'll go to Tbilisi. And you hear stories about Tbilisi, and it was okay. So my mental thinking was like, you know what, I'm a no, in the world, and I'm nobody in the world in wrestling. I'm just just some guy from the United States at 114.5 pounds. I got nothing to lose. So I trained my butt off. I did like Iron Man. I just stay in the middle and just had guys coming in on me on takedowns. And I don't care. I couldn't barely pick myself up. I wanted to be in top physical shape. I was telling myself, okay, these guys are going to beat me. They're going to go through a living hell to beat me. Okay. Cause my motors is never going to end. It's just going to go and go and go. So when we get there, we're already a day behind because we had like some sort of bomb threat at JFK. So all of us had to get off the plane and wait for a new plane. So that was like a whole day process. So by the time we get into Tbilisi, it's the day before, and I'm like 12 pounds over. In Tbilisi, you ever been in Tbilisi? Back then, it's like going into watching a black and white movie. I don't know. I was raised on black and white movies, and now they got all this Technicolor and Cinemax and all this. And it was like going from, a colored movie to a black and white movie.
Why do you say that?
Just the whole environment, the whole city, the colors, the expressions of people on their faces. Ugh. And, I'm from Southern Cal. Come on, I'm a Southern Cal boy. And I'm in there, and it's freezing cold. And I had, Randy Lewis was, from Iowa, and he's, oh man, Gonzo, this is like sunshine. Are you kidding me? I was just like, thermal underwear and down jackets and mittens and gloves. And I remember running the streets all night to make weight. I was miserable. And I would be like one of the last ones to make weight, 15 minutes left to go before they shut down the scale in Tbilisi. And back then it was a 3-day tournament. And so I was always the last one to make weight, one of the last ones. And I don't know. It was just like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like I had tunnel vision. My first match, I draw the Mongolian. He was a bronze medalist in the World Championships the year before. And I beat him, and I wrestled like Hungarians, some Cubans, some Russians. I don't know how to explain it. I was on a tear. I was just, I guess I didn't think I didn't think I was gonna win, but it was like, okay, I got nothing to lose. I'm gonna get everything I got, and before you know it, I'm in the finals, and I'm the only foreigner in the finals. Okay,
that's the thing that people don't realize is that back then, only one Russian could place, right? Or only one Soviet.
Yes.
How did they do that?
Well, the foreigners, you know what? I can't even explain, because the Mongolian landed up taking third in the Tbilisi tournament. Okay, I beat him in the first round, and I saw him get beat by other Russians after me.
But there could only be one Russian.
So those Russians can't place. Okay, right. Okay. So he moves up, and he's like, whatever, the highest placing foreigner, and that's on my bracket or whatever. So he lands up taking a third. Okay. So, but I don't know how the system worked back then. I don't know how they do it. But
so you make the finals. What happens then?
I take him down right off the bat. And then I get a little over anxious and kind of cocky and start kind of started getting after him, you know, and I said, oh, maybe I can win this thing. Boom! He hits me with a 2-point headlock, you know, because they had those grand aptitude throws. Okay, then I scramble out of it, and I pop back up. I go after him again. Boom! He hits me with a 3-point headlock, you know, and I'm like, oh, my, maybe I'm not going to win this thing. You know, I'm down 5-1, and the period runs out. And I had Coach Peckman, okay? He was a great motivator. I mean, you know, he really helped me through that tournament. And I look at him, I go, Coach, I go, man, I did some dumb mistakes. He goes, don't worry, Joe. He goes, you're going to be fine. You got 3 minutes. You're going to come back. You're in shape. You know, look at that guy over there. Look like he's already getting tired. He goes, don't worry about it, okay? Just relax, okay? So I look at the clock and I go, okay, I got 3 minutes to come back. You know, so it's going to be like 3 minutes, and I don't care after the match is over. If I drop dead, I don't care, you know. So before you know it, 3 minutes, you know, we slap hands. Okay, the ref blows the whistle. And I just, like, all I remember is having this tunnel vision. I was in the zone. And I just started, like, picking them apart. Like, someone turned on a switch, and I went in auto mode and just started my own, you know, the stuff that I drilled and practiced thousands and thousands and thousands of time just click like that. You know, it was instinctive. I didn't have to think about it. I was just like pressure and technique and pressure, technique, pressure, technique. And before you know it, I hit a high C here, and then a single here, and a high C here, and a single blah, blah, blah. Before you know it, it's tied up 5-5 with like 15 seconds go. And he's going to win because he had the first 3-point move on me. At least that's what the rules back then. And I don't know what happened, but in those 15 seconds, I don't even remember. I think he took a shot. I don't know what he's thinking. He didn't have to shoot on me. And, you know, back then, the Soviets knew how to stall. They were great stallers. And he shot in on me, and I snapped him down and spun behind him, scored the takedown, won the match, and the buzzer goes off, and I'm like, I won. I was like, oh, thank you, God. You know, it was quite an experience. I never forget it. And I knew in that tournament, you know, like you talked about I talked about the science of the sport, but I knew back and after that tournament, I knew it was a fight. I mean, I had almost busted out my tooth. I had a black eye. I thought I broke my nose because the way they wrestle is very, very physical. Okay. If they hit a single on you and you stuck in a little short whizzer and you don't want them to get the angle, they would pick up your leg and take it, like run your leg almost to your head, you know, go against the joint, and the wrist will not break it, you know? And I was like, oh, you know, and so,
how many matches to get to the finals do you think? If you had to guess?
I want to say it was a 3-day tournament. So I want to say 8.
Oh my Lord. So 8 of just the grittiest, toughest dudes you could wrestle in Georgia, you know, at the Soviet Union at that time. And so you win the tournament. I mean, the feeling of victory is something that, you know, a victory like that is something very few people feel. Do you remember what you did that night afterwards?
You know what?
Any vodka? Any bear cloaks?
Nah, you know, believe me, there was nothing much to eat there that's any good. I do remember we got back to Moscow and we went to the U.S. Embassy, okay? And there, I don't care, those little pizzas that come in those packages that you microwave, I don't care. I must have had like 25 of them. They were like, they taste like cardboard, but to me they taste like, you know, the best food I've ever eaten, you know. And I was tired of drinking mineral water, mineral vaza. They call it mineral vaza. Give me some plain water, you know. And I was eating ice cream and popcorn. I mean, that was like my celebration banquet, you know. I want to say Tbilisi did have a banquet, but I don't recall like, you know, drinking that much or eating a whole lot. I remember trading a lot, you know, for those Russian fur hats and, you know, some of those dolls that go smaller and smaller and smaller. I think you call them Matryoshka dolls. I'm not really sure. I remember trading a lot for those, So,
But the Soviet Union was pretty bleak at that time. Is what you're saying,
yes,
huh? Pretty
yes,
bleak.
yes. And when I did win the tournament, they did boo me. But they whistle. The whistling over there, at least at the time, is like booing, like boo. They would whistle. Okay, and so after I won, I was like this, and thank you, dear God. They were all whistling. So yeah.
So that's one of your best memories. You said there's two that you have, like two really great memories from wrestling. I mean, you have a million, but two great moments. And I'm guessing it's either going to be the 1980 NCAAs or the time you beat Anatoly. What comes next for you?
Probably 1980. Well, I'd
Yeah.
say both, because I'll go with Anatoly, because Anatoly had retired a year before I wrestled him. Okay, so now he comes out of retirement. He hasn't made 14s in a long time, and you know what? And to me, it was like, it's funny because I was thinking, I wonder if he's going to ask me this question, and this is how I'm going to answer it. Okay, here we go. Okay, he's a has-been, and I'm a never was has-been, and we're going at it. Okay.
Stop it. Okay.
And I'm the never was has-been, and I beat him. Okay. So that victory was sort of like short-lived, because I know he wasn't up to his potential. He was already spent a whole year off. His speed wasn't there. His strength wasn't there. I was in the downslope of my, my wrestling career, my athletic career. Same with me. But, I pulled it off. I won. I could say, I beat Anatoly. But I want to say the other great experience was in 1980 winning the NCAA title for Joe Seay, for my family. My parents were there. It was on the West Coast. So all the West Coast people, that knew me and followed me through my wrestling career in high school and in college were able to attend. So that was a great experience for me. And I remember, I want to say it was I don't think it was my semifinal match. It was maybe the quarterfinals. I won the match, and one of the reporters comes up to me and say, "Joe, you know what? You just tied the NCAA record for the most wins with no losses and ties." I go, "Really?" I go, "What's that?" And he said, like 53 or, I said, "Oh, that's great, but that's not my goal. I want to be a national champion." So then, the semis I win and the finals I win. And so then he says, "Well, now you're the record holder." And I know John, I think I was 55 that season. I want to say John was 53.
And John Azvedo?
Yes, he was 53-0.
So between the two of you guys had well over 100 matches without a loss. Was Jesse Reyes wrestling at that time, or was he coaching?
He was wrestling. I want to say he was a freshman.
Okay.
He was a freshman, and he was a freshman, but he didn't make it to the D1 tournament.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're up in Corvallis, Oregon. You win the match against, was it Glenn from Iowa at the time?
Yes, Dan Glenn. Yes.
Dan Glenn. So I know you guys had battled before that match. So, you seem like a guy who really takes obviously you have the Japanese philosophy, you have the spiritual approach, you have the science approach. So going into a match like that, someone like you, I'm really curious, what's your self-talk and what are you thinking to yourself 20 minutes out before a big match like that?
Well, that match, that up to that match was nerve-wracking because, as you know, the finals are on Saturday, and also all the placings are on Saturday at the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So Friday night, I want to say it was the semifinals, which I won, and then I have all day Saturday to just think about this match, and it's nerve-wracking because I'm the type of guy like, hey, after semifinals, 5 minutes later, I'm ready to wrestle in the finals. I want to just get it over with. I don't want to just be dwelling all night about this match. And with Dan, we've had some barn burner matches. And every match I wrestled against him, he would always get out to a very big lead, like 8-1 or 9-2. I mean, just just crushed me the first period and a half. And so I was really nervous. I was a nervous wreck. You know, I had to piss every 10 seconds. I was so nervous. Wait, Coach Seay, I got to go to the restroom. What do you mean, Joe? You're going to wrestle right now. Wait. I got to go to the bathroom. You know, so I was nervous. So, you know, like any psychologist in sports tells you, there's always the mental preparation. You know, you make a mental picture way ahead of time, which I was doing all the night before in my head. You know, like if this, you know, work out these certain scenarios, what would happen and what he has done to me, you know. And so when the match started, you know, I beat him. I beat him. I want to say I beat him. He didn't get a big lead on me. I got the first takedown. He always used to get the first 3 takedowns on me and actually put me on my back all the time. I just wrestled real conservatively, considered, you know, my style of wrestling up to that point was take him down, let him go. With him, I didn't want to take him down and let him go. If I took him down, I kind of kept him down because, you know, he's a guy, you know, he was strong. He was a lot lankier than me. And, you know, he was in shape. I don't want to get caught in these flurries. And then before you know it, he's ahead of me. So I wrestled very conservatively. And, you know, I think I beat him like 6-3, you know. And so everything just kind of clicked for me, you know.
Were you able to calm yourself before the match, or did you go out there a nervous wreck?
Oh, I was still a nervous wreck. I was, you know, they're introducing everybody, you know, the finalists. And so I'm like, oh, I know I was the first one up. So I'm like running up and down in the hallway, you know, because everyone, you know, the Russians, they just stand there stoic before their match in the corner and just look like they're conserving energy. And I'm just the opposite. You know, I'm the Mexican jumping being going bing, 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 you know, all over the place, you know. So, so that's, you know, I just can't wait to, you know, shake his hand and let's just get the fight on.
Let's go.
You know, get it over with.
Now, I think you would probably agree with this, that you wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for some of your junior college coaches, Coach Bolander and Coach Oyana. Talk about the impact was it Oyana, Shiro Oyana?
Actually, there was 3 of them. And,
talk about the impact they had.
Well, actually, they were the ones that showed me the scientific approach of wrestling. Like I said, I had a high school coach, and I respected him for what he did, you know, and everything he taught me. But he never wrestled before, and he kind of, you know, coached wrestling through a book.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had teammates that said, well, go to the junior college, and they had an open room. So these guys kind of like took me under their wing. There was Coach Bolander, Coach Shepard, that's from Palatine, Illinois.
Represent.
Okay.
We're in Chicago right now. That's why I say that.
Oh, okay. And Shiro Oyama. These guys kind of took me under their wing, and they're the ones that taught me the science of wrestling. And you know, they were the ones that had the big impact in my wrestling career. Not only in wrestling, but you know, in education and going to college and, you know, being a good person and, you know, stuff like that. You know, they really influenced me, the way I, you know, what they produced, you could say, you know.
Well, the reason
I'm a product of them.
No question. And the reason I brought it up was there's a lot of guys who listen to this show who are high school seniors who, you know, they didn't grow up with a big wrestling family. Maybe they didn't have the money to travel around, and they never even placed at state, but they still want to wrestle in college. And there's someone in my mind I'm thinking of who I've been messaging about this. But your story is just so cool that you didn't even start to reach your peak until after your senior season of high school. It's just incredible to me.
Yeah, like I said, maybe I was a late bloomer. I mean, who's to say my senior year when I received that head concussion, if, you know, I would have been in the state tournament, been a state champion. I don't know. Yeah. You know, John Azvedo landed up winning the, you know, I was at the same weight class. He landed up winning the state title that year, you know, and of course we never met. And, but you know what the funny thing is, I'm glad I went the way things happened, because I went to East LA Junior College my freshman year in college, and I felt like I owed it to these 3 coaches that had such an influence on me in my life and my wrestling career. I owed it to them. And so as a freshman, I won the state JUCO tournament, and they said, okay, Joe, it's time to move on. We've done everything we can. You got to go. You got to start learning, go up to the next level, you know, because we can only take you so far. So that's, you know, that's when Oklahoma was after me. There was a couple other schools, but, you know, mainly Oklahoma was that I was thinking of going to, and Cal State Bakersfield. Actually, Joe Seay recruited me too, but I landed up going to Oklahoma because of the, you know, tradition at Oklahoma, and, you know, Oklahoma's famous for wrestling. It's a wrestling state. You know, come on. I mean, you know, if you want to be a good wrestler, you go to one of those schools, either an Iowa school or an Oklahoma school. At least back then.
And did UCLA still have wrestling?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But they didn't. You know, at the time, let's see.
That's where Schultz.
I don't know if I don't know if the Schultz were on the team at the time.
Gotcha.
They might have been. I'm not really sure. Okay.
I just think it's so cool that UCLA, you know, one of the great sports powerhouses of college across all sports, that they used to have wrestling, and that's where the Schultz started. And so since you're in LA, I figured, man, how did he not end up there? But maybe it was already shut down at that time.
No, it wasn't. It was, let's see, in 1980. I know in 79 they had it, because I wrestled guys like, well, you know, they had Fred Bona was NCAA champion. They had Gary Bohe, okay, that was on the team. They had another guy way before me named Sergio Gonzales, who was on the 72 Olympic team, and he was runner-up in the NCAAs. They had quite a few, you know, All-Americans. And at the time when the Schultz were there, those guys had a good shot of winning the NCAA team title. Wow. But then they dropped the program all of a sudden. And so, you know, all these, Gary Bohe went to Arizona State. The Schultzes went to Oklahoma, you know, and I don't know where all the other guys went. But Dave Alba was the head coach. He had a team back then. There was a couple other good guys, California state champions they had on that team that were potential to be national champions. Man. You know,
just crazy. It's sad, honestly. It's not crazy. It's sad to see the change in the college wrestling landscape in California over the years. Especially you talk about Washington. I mean, think about the great Larry Owings and all those good Washington teams, and now there's not a D1 program in Washington. You know, it does hurt the soul a little bit. I wanted to wind down with this, Mr. Gonzales. I wouldn't be doing the wrestling world justice if we didn't talk about 79, one of the greatest college matches of ever been.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks. Go ahead. Finish the question.
We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
No. I don't mind. I don't care.
I mean, you watch that matchup.
It's history.
Man, you only had one loss at Cal State Bakersfield over 2 years. You were like 98-1. And you lost to G Mills in the finals, and what is considered by many is the greatest NCAA finals match of all time. I mean, I'm not talking about to bring up bad memories. I just think it's one of the funnest matches to watch. I mean, and now I know you and Gene are good friends, so just talk about that a little bit and how that friendship's developed over the years.
Well, the first time I never met Gene until I wrestled him in the East-West All-Star match at Oregon State. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I landed up beating him, I want to say 11-9 or 11-10. Okay, so yeah, I beat him. And then, you know, a couple of months later, I meet him in the NCAA finals. And, yeah, I don't even know. I mean, that whole match was crazy. It was just crazy. It was going back. I mean, everyone talks about it. You know, to me, it's just like a blur. You know, in fact, I thought I was ahead, you know.
Yeah.
Because it was going back and forth. And, you know, I made one mistake. Gene capitalized on it, scored the points, and won the match. You know, It is what it is. The following year, believe me, I tell this Gene, I was gunning for you the next year. And his excuse is, oh, that was the Olympic year. So I redshirted so I could train for the Olympics. You know, and so, okay. So So in 1980, I make it to the finals again, and I win the NCAA title. And then in 1981, Gene wins the NCAA title again. Okay, so we never got to meet. And then after that, on the internationals, the freestyle scene, he was at 25s and I was at 14s. So him and I were on a lot of like, how do you say it? Teams that went, overseas.
Yeah.
A couple of tournaments in France, and I think we might have gone to a couple of, to Cuba. But we were on a lot of teams together, I want to say. And we used to hang out all the time, but yeah, that match was, everyone brings it up, but it's okay. I don't know. Some people said Joe, because I think Bob Suddens was the ref.
Yeah, he was.
Which was Dan Gable's coach. And some people said, hey, they said, I don't know exactly, because I don't even look at the match anymore. I haven't seen it. It's not that I don't want to. I just don't, I don't watch it.
Yeah. But
some people do watch it. Said, Joe, he called a quick 2 that shouldn't even been a 2. And that kind of changed the whole, dictated how the match went after that. So I don't know how true that is. I'm sure you saw the match, I can't really say, because I haven't seen the match in a long time. But they said he called some points really fast that they shouldn't have been called. So I don't know if that is correct or not.
Gotcha.
At this point. But it doesn't matter. It is what it is. It wasn't meant to be, that I should have been a national champion that year. Gene wanted. It is what it is. Life goes on,
And did you went on to coach at Arizona State afterwards?
Yes, with Coach Douglas, yes.
So were you there in 88?
Yes, I was.
My Lord. One of my favorite stories in wrestling, the year Arizona State won. I mean, and this can be our last question, what's your fondest memory of that team title?
Oh, that's that's another, what do you call it? Wrestling moment that's important to me too, because, being the first West Coast team to win, a D1 title, and who knows if it will ever happen again. Hopefully Zeke Jones pulls it out, does a job over there. We all just came together. We were just a tight knit group of individuals. Those guys on that team, they played together, they partied together, they studied together, they practiced together, and I think what helped us win the tournament, even though we didn't have a national champion, I call them the Wrestlebacks, the consolation rounds. We just started okay, from Arizona State, decision here, from Arizona State, a decision here. We just started racking up the points. And the next morning, when they announced who's in the lead, I didn't hear us in the top 3 as I don't know who was. Iowa State was second, maybe Oklahoma State was third, and they go in first place. And then I was like, oh man, we dropped. They said Arizona State. I go, what? We're like, what? And everyone's looking at each other. I'm looking at all the wrestlers we can win this thing. We got to just buckle down and just win these matches. And sure enough, everyone wrestled their butt off. And the funny thing was, back then, I remember Coach Douglas, he left for an international tournament. So 2 weeks, he left 2 weeks prior to the national tournament. He says, okay, Joe, it's all on, you coach them. And I had a great assistant coaches. I had Eddie Urbano, Tim Vanny, Fletcher Carr. We had all these guys in the room. And so my practice, I really changed up the practice. You talk about the science, that's where I cut the practices down. They weren't 2 hours, 2.5 hours long. They're about an hour and a half long, but the intensity level was very high. And I think the longest resting period I gave the wrestlers was maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and then boom, they're right back at it. Okay, so I didn't let them get down to their resting heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they still had it elevated somewhat, and then boom, they were right back at it. And then a lot of guys wanted to still keep on wrestling and go, no, get out of here. Go home. Go study. Get a meal in you. Because I want them to have that itch, that desire to still wrestle more. So I kind of like held back on the reins and said, get out of here. So I never went past an hour and a half in practice up to the national tournament, but the intensity level was intensified in that practice. Where, a 2 to 2.5 hour practice, it's usually, you take some breaks here, you talk. There was no talking. We were just constantly moving, drilling and wrestling and moving and just conditioning, and then get out of here, go home. Think about winning, make a mental picture of being a national champion. So it just worked out great. And then we had the reunion, 2 years ago, where Arizona State University recognized all the wrestlers and the coaching staff, and we all got invited at Tempe, and it was a great. We had some good stories. It was great. It was fun. See all those guys again. Yeah.
Mr. Gonzales, this has been an awesome conversation. I really thank you for your time, sir. Any last words before we head off here?
No, I just want to say, I want to say hi to everyone that, I used to wrestle against, or, all my wrestling brothers. I just want to say hi, and keep the faith, and we got to keep supporting these college wrestling programs, especially in California. Because like I said, in this on the West Coast, it's a dying sport. And we just gotta save our sport,
Well said. We'll get that message out there. I'll make that a small clip, and we'll put it out on all of the social media platforms, because I couldn't agree more. And again, just really appreciate your time. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for everything. Sir. Take care.